Hey, welcome back to Music Teachers Muse, where today we are talking about the pros and cons of teaching online versus teaching in person. So, as we all know, we are in what I call the horse fuckery of COVID, because I'm sick of this shit, but we don't have any damn choice, do we? So, we have to deal with, and it's not like online teaching is a new thing, it's been a very common thing for years. When I was at MI in Hollywood, people were telling me about students they had online back then. But now we've been forced to deal with it. So let's jump right in. I know I'm Mr. Sunshine, aren't I? So, I've done a lot of it since COVID, but I must admit I do miss my in-person store job. I do have students I go to now, but it's been a lot less than it was for obvious reasons. So we adapt as we get older and we learn. I'm here to educate. So, pro number one, convenience. You don't have to leave your home if you don't choose to, because you need to be in some sort of physical structure where you have an internet connection and you can have an instrument and you can teach. So, you have a laptop or a cell phone, smartphone, or a tablet, and as long as you have a good internet connection that's strong and stable, and then decent lighting, audio, and video, you're golden. It's not a problem. Zoom is the one I've been using, and it's easy. If you haven't done it before, you just literally, it's a free Zoom account. You send the student a link. You just click copy invitation. You paste it in an email. You can do it on your phone. It's easy to do either way. And then they just get the email update, and then they click the link, and they're in once you hit the admit button. It's like an online meeting. So it's real easy to do. And you can do it from anywhere in the world. I was on vacation last month in Indiana and teaching students in LA and in Texas from my friend Terry's house. I just brought my iPad with me, and then I used his guitars and all that. But you can be in a hotel room doing it. Doesn't really matter. You can be in New York and teach somebody in Malaysia or whatever it is, as long as they have an internet connection and you know what time to agree on to do it. That's a little bit of a pain because you have to figure out the time zone differences, but that's anywhere as long as you're not doing it like in the same state or time zone you're already at. So that's pro number one. Pro number two is you do not have to incur the same expenses because you're not driving to the students. Like in LA, it saves you a ton of time because you're not fighting the shit traffic that exists here. LA statistically has the worst traffic in the world, last I checked, and anybody who's lived here for more than about 10 days and driven anywhere can tell you it's true. So that can add another hour or two or more onto your day, depending on what time of day you have to leave or be at your designated appointment and which route you choose to take. So if you're on the 405, like rush hour, forget it. You got to leave 2-3 hours early to get there to your appointment on time. It sucks. So you have to accommodate for that. So you're not necessarily wasting, but you're not spending money on vehicle wear and tear and gas and maintenance, oil changes and transmission services and all the usual stuff that comes with owning a vehicle. You can even get a break on your insurance, from what I understand now, because if you're not driving your car as often. So the only real expense you incur having to do the online thing is the internet bill and upkeep of your computer gear and all that sort of stuff. The other pro is you have more time to teach because you're not on the road and eating up time, so you don't have to spend an hour to get there and then start teaching when you get to your shift at wherever you were teaching at or the student's home. You have that hour to book a couple half-hour students, however many you can fit in there. I do half-hour, hour, and 45-minute lessons, but it just depends on which student has which time and how much time they have. But you can book more students and make more money as long as you can fit them into that time that you don't have to be on the road to and from your destination. And the fourth pro is that the ability for the student to record you is far greater because they literally, you just hit the button. There's a little drop-down menu on Zoom anyway, and it gives you several options. Like you can share the screen and all that, but the one says allow record. Depending on the computer or unit that they have. Like if they have a Chromebook, it won't allow you to let them record. It's stupid, but it's just how it functions, or it doesn't, however you want to look at it. But on, like, I have an Acer, I have a Lenovo laptop, but if the student has whatever allows them to do that, it lets me give them permission to record. So they can record as much of the lesson or as little as they want. You can play the examples and or just if you're just talking about a certain topic, you don't have to write it down for them because they can just reference that within the medium. So it's great. And there's another lesson coming up pretty soon on the channel about how is always letting your students record you before the end of the lesson so that they can physically see how it's supposed to be done. That's not a problem with in-person lessons, but they always have to use their cell phone to do that. This just lets them do it with the laptop or whatever device they're using. So those are the 4 pros. Let's jump into the cons. Because nothing's perfect. There's a few things like that guitar might be, but there's many things that aren't, and most things aren't. So the first con is the technical BS that comes with having to use any kind of technology, because you have apps that lag, or an internet connection goes down, or the audio is kind of crappy. So there's a couple of those that go into that. Like on Zoom, or any app really. I mean, my PlayStation or my phone or anything that requires an app or some kind of software, it's got to be updated somewhat regularly. So you'll go to jump on and do the lesson, and it'll say update needed, or it doesn't operate correctly. So you have to hit that. It can be 10 minutes before your lesson. It can screw up your whole day because you might have 4 students that day, for instance. And if that happens, then you're starting the lesson late, and you got to send them a text or an email, say, hey, sorry, my computer's acting up. And it's happened to me several times since we've been doing this whole COVID, everybody's at home BS. So it's difficult. It's part of life. I mean, I'm here to educate. This is all real world stuff. So I've experienced all of this stuff. Anything I talk about on this channel, I've experienced in my own profession of teaching in some manner. So that's one thing. That's just normal technological stuff. The audio can be glitchy. Sometimes it's really easy to hear the student, whether they're speaking or playing. Sometimes it's barely audible. I don't have any fancy speakers for my computer. They do the job fine. I can see everything fine, but sometimes they'll say something I can barely hear until like the very last thing that they say, and then it'll come out. Sometimes the audio is just booming and it's too loud, or they'll play something and I hear just the tail end of it, or I barely hear anything they play at all. And that might have something to do with like the proximity of their amp to the computer speaker. Like if you're at a gig, you're in front of the amp. Like if I was at a gig right now and this amp was on, say, like 5, this is a ridiculously loud amp, both of these are. But if I'm like right here, I can't hear the amp for shit. I have to be a decent distance away from it for the sound to come to me. So that might have something to do with it. But regardless, it's really annoying, and it just pisses you off. But you can't do much about it other than say, hey, I can't hear you, and you have to ask them again. So that is con number 1. You've got the technological difficulties of it. Con number 2 is more should be like number 1 because it's a bigger complaint of mine, but as far as in line, it's number 2, is the lack of the human connection. I mean, everybody has to deal with this COVID BS. I won't even go into that whole rant. That's going to take another whole 10 minutes, but it's literally, we have to deal with it, and everybody's online now. The human connection has been severely lacking for a long time because everybody's on their phones and nobody talks on the phone anymore, and texting this, that, and the other. But it makes teaching harder because you're not in the room with the student. Kids make mistakes all the time. You'll tell them to go to the 3rd fret, they'll go to the 4th fret. You'll tell them to go up a fret, they'll go this way because this is up, like direction-wise. You might know how that goes if you've been playing guitar or any fretted instrument long enough. So you can't just literally grab their finger or even like take a pencil and like tap the fret on their neck and tell them to go to this one. There's just no way you can physically do that because you're not in the room with them. And conveying some of the information is much harder. It's just tougher for them to get it because they can't sometimes hear you as well. They can't see you as well. Like I don't have a camera that I can tilt, like the thing. I have to like tilt the laptop screen down or kick it back so they can see my hands. But you know, it just makes it a little bit tougher. But just the lack of the one-on-one, and you don't have as much camaraderie. You're still interacting with the student and doing the best that you can, because that's the only way you can. Not the only way you can do it. At least here in LA, we're still on a lot of lockdown as far as that goes. I know a lot of the rest of the country is open right now, but it's still something that it just makes it harder to get the information across due to the medium that we have to adhere to for the time being. And even if after the COVID is lifted, you know, people are still going to be teaching online. So it's been a thing for a long time, but now we're just forced to do a whole lot more. I know lots of people who are working from home right now. The third con is the lack of influx of students that you were going to have at the store or school that you were teaching at, because you literally just don't have people coming in to, like, 1,000 times I've gotten students from, you know, just coming in to check out a guitar or a bass or ukulele or whatever they're looking for, and then they don't even know we teach lessons until somebody tells them, or they see the sign that says lessons, or what are these rooms in the back for, and we'll show them, oh, can we get a free trial lesson, or we'll tell them about the program, and I'll get a sign up out of it because they just happen to stop in and want to check out an instrument, but then they need somebody to teach them how to play it. So, you know, in iStep or whoever's teaching there, and we have a constant influx of potential new students, and that's a great thing because it's so much easier to get. Even if you're not there talking to the customers, somebody is there promoting the lessons, and if they know you, then you're going to be able to have that luxury. Like there's a video we did, we haven't aired yet, but it's about, you know, making friends with the guys who work at the store so they can talk you up and potentially book you for students. As long as you're cool with them and help them out, they'll do the same for you. So that's the other major con that goes along with it, and it's something we have to deal with, especially now. You can probably tell I don't like it as much. It's got its pros and cons as we're talking about today, but I really miss the in-person one-on-one. It just makes me feel a lot better about what I'm doing, and it's just it's more comfortable too. I mean, it doesn't feel, it's the personal one-on-one human interaction is just there versus talking to a computer screen. You're still interacting with a human being, but you know what I mean. I'm rambling on. So let's go ahead and reiterate all the points of this lesson. So the pros we have are the convenience, then we have the extra time, the ability for the student to record the entire lesson or however much they want of it, and that you have less expense and more profit. The cons are the technological issues, you know, audio and you know, apps, updates, that fun stuff. And then you have the lack of the human connection and the lack of the influx of students. You know, if you don't have the store doing it for you, or the constant customers coming in, you have to promote yourself. You know, MySpace. I'm showing my age now. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Craigslist. You know, websites, that sort of thing. Anybody who's like been alive in the last 10 years knows what I'm talking about. So it's the world we live in. So take it to heart, because it is reality, and we are just going off experience here. So thanks for tuning in. Please hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for Music Teachers Muse, and we will see you on the next video. Peace out.